Hi, friends. This is a solo episode today, and I'm excited to bring this one to you. This one has been on my heart for a couple of weeks now. I've just been percolating on it, thinking about this message that I want to bring you. And it's kind of cool because as you're listening to this on the day that it airs, I'll be in the mountains in a cabin in the woods with my good friend Erin. We're going on a silent retreat next week. And never in my life did I ever imagine myself like opting in out of my own idea to spend a week in silence in the woods. I love talking. I especially love connecting with people. But since I went on my last retreat early June and we did 2.5 days of silence, which at first I was terrified to do, listen to my last episode a couple weeks back on presence, the power of presence. But we had to do 2.5 days of silence, turning our phones in, all devices in, not even books. And the purpose was to really hear from God, higher power, intuition in the silence. And it was so unbelievably profound and life changing. Those 2 days alone, just me, myself, and I, and God was more powerful than years of coaching and masterminds and therapy and, group online programs that I've done, honestly, just life changing. So, my friend Erin, who was on the retreat with me, and I decided that we were going to plan a week towards the end of July. So that'll be next week to go to a cabin in the woods um, and spend the week in silence. And my intention is because personally, it's been made very clear there's something new that it's time to build, something I've been thinking about literally for years. And I just kept waiting because it didn't feel like the right time. I'm not going to tell details yet, but it was this strong, strong, strong pull and knowing that I meant to go get away, escape, be in nature, be silent, and ask God to really speak loud and clear about what this thing is that I'm building, all the details of it, what it's supposed to be. And my goal is to create it while I'm there. So I know that sounds really like ambiguous and, it sounds very teasy. I know, but I'm just not ready to share it yet. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm really getting excited. I feel like, oh my gosh, it feels like God's already waiting for me up in the mountains, in the woods. And there's been so many signs and confirmations that it's time for this. So definitely details will come. But for today, I really want to bring this message that's been strong on my heart. And I've been excited for this week's solo episode that you guys will listen to when I'm on my last day of my silent retreat. It gets to be this good. And I want to start actually in a different way than I've ever started an episode on this show with the opening line of the Kite Runner. I don't know if you've read the Kite Runner or heard of the Kite Runner, but it was required that we read it in high school. I read it as a freshman in high school, and I was never a huge reader. I mean, growing up, this is embarrassing, but I was like obsessed with Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen books and like what else? Like Britney Spears biography, like things like that. I was into just not like the most amazing of fiction, right? But this book, The Kite Runner, completely captured my attention as a freshman in high school. And I decided to pick it up again this past month. And I could not put it down. It was like I was reading it for the first time. I remembered little details here and there, but there was, gosh, so much new that resonated with me because I'm such a different human, obviously, than the version of me that read this in high school. And if you don't know what it's about, two young boys that grow up in Afghanistan. And so even as I was reading it, Sebastian was like, wow, you really like that book, huh? Is it good? And my response was, what do you mean by like? Do you mean, is it ripping my heart out of my body and throwing it into the ocean? And like, it's just so unbelievably heart wrenching, but I couldn't put it down. So I'm going to read the opening line because it really has to do with what I want to bring you today. So, first paragraph says, I became what I am today at the age of 12. on a frigid, overcast day in the winter of 1975. I remember the precise moment, crouching behind a crumbling mud wall, peeking into the alley near the frozen creek. That was a long time ago, but it's wrong what they say about the past, I've learned, about how you can bury it, because the past claws its way out. Looking back now, I realize I've been peeking into that deserted alley for the last 26 years. And you know what's funny? When I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's everything I teach about how our body keeps the score of the trauma that we've survived. And if we don't go into the body to move it out, whatever tragedy, atrocity has happened to us, even if it was decades ago, we can be reliving it in the present moment as if it's happening literally right now. And so I was like, wow, never realized the Kite Runner opening line was like so descriptive of somatic work and everything I'm passionate about getting out into the world. So the next day, I decided to pick back up another book you might have heard of, The Body Keeps the Score. That is like the Bible of somatic healing. If you've never heard of it, just the title alone, you can get the gist. The body keeps the score of what we've survived. And so I decided to pick that back up. And you know what's so wild? The very first opening paragraph of The Body Keeps the Score quotes the Kite Runner, that paragraph I just read. And I was like, what are the odds? This is a book I haven't touched since high school. And then Body Keeps the Score, I haven't picked up in like over a year. And they have the very same opening line. Like, this is crazy. And so hold the thought on the Kite Runner. I'm actually going to end this episode with one more quote from the book. But what I want to talk about with this title, It Gets to Be This Good, is we are wired, our nervous system is wired with what's called a negativity bias. You might have heard the phrase, but just for the sake of definition and getting on, collective terms, a negativity bias, it's our tendency not only to register negative stimuli more readily, but also to dwell on these events. Negativity bias means that we feel the sting of criticism more powerfully than we feel the joy of a compliment. So it explains why, for example, bad first impressions can be so hard to overcome, or why past trauma can have such long lingering effects, why the author, the main character of this story was saying, like, here I am years and years, decades later, and I feel like this whole time I'm still just peeking behind the wall of this tragedy, this trauma that happened decades past from my childhood. So with negativity bias, in almost any interaction, we were more likely to notice negative things and then later remember those things more vividly. Our body truly does keep the score of everything, good and bad, but it's like the negative stimuli is extra bolded with a Sharpie on that scoreboard. So humans are kind of weird, right? And interesting. When you think about our species as humans, we tend to remember traumatic experiences better than positive ones. We recall insults better than praise. We react more strongly to negative stimuli. We think about negative things more frequently than positive ones. And we also respond more strongly to negative events, more so than positive ones. So, this tendency to pay more attention to bad things and overlook the good things is likely a result of one, evolution. You think back to earlier human history, paying attention to bad, dangerous, or negative threats in the world was literally a matter of life and death. So those humans in ancient civilizations in yesteryears, our ancestors, they were more attuned to danger, and those who paid more attention to the bad things around them were more likely to survive. People weren't living in cush little, air conditioned homes forever. There was a time when you're sleeping under the stars and a bear could get you at any time. So this meant they were also more likely to hand down the genes that made humans more attentive to danger. So we have these pat answers in our modern day society that can really irk my nerves. And we have these toxically positive, cliche sayings that honestly can be comforting for some, depending on the person and the moment. But for others, these cliche little pat answers can just add salt to the wound of our suffering. What am I talking about? Things like, just got to look at the cup half full. I wanna say sometimes in moments of grief, like, or when I last lost my dad or any kind of challenge I've gone through, when people have this kind of phrase to throw at me, I wanna be like, "Okay, Karen, easier said than done when generations of evolution have programmed my body to search for danger. Okay, but I'll try to look at the glass half full." Or when people say, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." This one really bothers me, especially with big T trauma. Like, you can't tell someone who's been raped or who's lost a child that everything happens for a reason. Like, these words do not heal people. They can be very dismissive and they can actually gaslight the very earth shattering grief that we as a society are so allergic to feeling. So, what am I saying? Am I saying, like, unless you're a realist dripping with sarcasm, you're delusional? No, no. No, 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 I'm not saying that. I am a big believer in 2 things, can be true, and so here's what I know. One thing I know for certain is that there is a way to live as a highly radiant, joyful, vibrational being, even after you've been through unspeakable trauma. That is truth. 2, there is a way to feel safe in your body in both negative and positive situations. I know that, like I know that, like I know that. Third truth, the moments of gold that we experience as humans, even if they feel very few and far between, even if we just taste them for a fraction of a second, the moments where we feel love, peace, purpose, gratitude, ease, these moments in our life actually get to be this good. So, I want to expand on those 3 truths. One, that there's a way to actually live a highly radiant, joyful, vibrational life, even after unspeakable trauma. I just think of all my best friends and clients as a testament to this. Just in the last year, I've known women who've survived domestic violence, emotional abuse, spiritual trauma, getting cheated on, lost their children to suicide or unexpected tragedy, cancer diagnoses, child custody battles, etc. The list goes on. And these same women, I've also had a front row seat to witness how they've moved incrementally day after day, sometimes just surviving and getting by, to land finally in a place of joy again, peace, power, pride in the pain that they've been able to alchemize into purpose. And what I've witnessed as well is the one thing all of these women have in common is they've turned into their bodies and learned how to feel safe in their bodies again after decades, especially of trying everything but the body, tapping into things typically from the neck up, just trying to think through things, talk through things, read to find the answer, listen to podcasts. All these things are great, but if we ignore our body, there's no way to go and move the trauma out that our body keeps the score of with that bold Sharpie marker. So, second truth, the point where there is a way to feel safe again in your body in both negative and positive situations. I love how the Bible describes it as a peace that passes understanding. In other words, it's a peace that makes no damn sense given the circumstances. And so I want to invite you, even right now, to think of something that you're going through that is unpleasant. Not something that's going to trigger a huge reaction, but just anything, could be even small, something that you're going through right now that you're like, oh, I'd rather not, or this is not fun, or this is boring, or this is uncomfortable. Now, I want you to think of a time when you felt genuine peace. And if you can't, maybe recall from a movie or a fictional story someone who seemed to embody or display an energy of peace. Like, wow, that person really seems calm. They seem grounded. They seem rooted. Or maybe it's somebody can be really helpful to think of a third person, party if we ourselves can't remember a time where we actually felt safe. which is really common. A lot of the clients that I work with, they're like, I don't know what safety feels like in my body. I have never felt safe. Maybe fractions of moments have felt that way, but they were also kind of muddled and intermixed with danger too. And so I just want to invite you to hold these two things at the same time, right? There might be something super unpleasant going on, but then if you recall a time or a person or a place that you've seen, maybe even online in a movie or in your imagination, I want you to think of that as well. Our body is so cool that when we connect mind and body again, if you listen to last week's episode, it was all about mind body connection. When we connect mind and body again and really work with the body, we can bring ourselves to a different somatic state. So let's say we're in an uncomfortable situation, but we're recalling a time when our body actually felt safe, or we recall that person that we saw as well. They seem very safe in their own skin and their own energy, really at peace. Sometimes we talk about fantasizing like it's a negative thing, like, oh, I was just escaping reality, always fantasizing, always thinking about, whatever it is. We can kind of demonize that and see that as a bad thing, like escaping reality. But oh my God, is it wise? Can you imagine if we as humans didn't have the ability to fantasize or an imagination? This is truly a survival tool that so many of us, especially in childhood, wouldn't have been able to survive the neglect, the abuse, the abandonment, the things we witnessed as kids, whatever our trauma history is. Fantasy is a huge, huge way that kids survive. Even in the Kite Runner, there is a part where, the kids were being rescued from a situation, and he was in like a nightmare of a reality. And he just talked to, thank God I can like escape in my mind to a more beautiful place. And so there is a way to feel safe in our body, even if the external situation is negative. One way is escaping to that scene, fantasizing, imagining. Another is using tools, grounding tools that I like to offer really easy, like the five senses. So, naming five things you can see, four things you can hear, three things you can touch, two things you can taste, one thing you can smell. Or box breathing. That's another favorite of mine and my clients, where you can breathe in your nose for 3 seconds. Try it right now. Hold for 3 seconds. Exhale for 3 seconds. And then hold for 3 seconds. It's like you're drawing a box in your imagination. So it's inhale, hold, exhale, hold, box breathing. Another of my favorites is, the big word for it is proprioception. So proprioception is just your awareness of your own body and space. Think about us. We are humans. We are also energy. Like, whether you're woo or not, the truth and the science of reality is that we emit a vibrational frequency, and we have, an energetic field around us that, when we're in a high vibration like love or gratitude or joy, that energetic field is like 6 feet away from our actual body. When we're in a different vibrational energy like fear, like anxiety, like terror, anger, the energetic field, the electromagnetic field actually constricts. And so, you know, something that can be really, really helpful, since we all are sending out different energies and frequencies, and sometimes other people's vibes, energies, frequencies are crashing into ours and they don't feel good. That's when we say, like, oh my God, there's something about them I don't vibe with, or oh, they're like in a bad mood, or there's something about their energy at the moment that I'm like, oh, it's repelling. So proprioception, the awareness of your own body and space, is remembering, hey, I am a boundaried being. Even though I can maybe pick up on a lot of ick around me, I am my own person, separate from that situation over there, that person over there. And so one tool that you can use to like remember this somatically and actually feel this in your body is just step away, even if it's just to the bathroom. If you can lay down on the floor, that's my favorite way to do this, but close your eyes and imagine in your mind's eye your outline of your body being traced, maybe like kids do on the sidewalk with a piece of chalk, just tracing the outline of our bodies. And what this does is it's a reminder that, like, okay, I am my own boundaried being and I'm separate from whatever is out there. And just play with it and see if it shifts anything. See if it helps you settle in. See if it helps your breathing slow down a bit. See if it helps you yawn, feel safer, even if it's just a little smidge, a little increment of safety. Another thing along those same lines are containment holds. So, for those of you listening and can't see me right now, I'll do my best to explain. But you're going to take your right hand and put it under your left armpit. And then you're going to take your left hand and grab your right bicep, your right upper arm. And this too reminds you, hey, I'm a boundaried being. I've got me. I'm holding myself. I'm my own container. I'm separate from whatever's around me trying to trigger me right now. So there's a lot of different containment holds. Another is one hand on your forehead, one on the base of your skull. Another is one hand on your forehead, one on your chest. So these are all ways to feel safe in your body, no matter what the experience is, negative or positive. The third truth, it gets to be this good. Okay. Steph Hall is a good friend of mine. She's also been a coach and a mentor for me. And she knew me when I was just starting out my business, when I was unsure if anyone would even show up to my first free masterclass. And she coached me how to bring in ideal, soul aligned clients in a way that felt really good. Both of us had been a part of sales in the past, network marketing. We knew how icky it could feel in growing your clientele, and in even that word sales, like it was an immediate association of ugh. And so this woman helped me completely shatter my paradigm on what it means to sell or offer something to someone else. And she taught me how to love, like fall in love, the invitation and the offer of bringing clients into my space. So Steph watched me lean into the vulnerable and unknown terrain of entrepreneurship. She watched me get to a place where I was so passionate to build and offer to women this thriving, successful, organism of a community that was beyond my wildest dreams. Like my baby, like the community we have right now, the Root to Rise group coaching program was just a thought, not even a clear thought at one point. And she watched it come to life and me become so passionate. So, where my mind and body actually went in like my most successful tipping points in my career and my entrepreneurship journey, my mind, you'd think it'd go to, woo, this is amazing. This is a dream come true. We've made it. But actually, the thoughts that went through my head in those moments when we really were just growing and making massive impact, and my team was growing, and we were making benchmarks, that were beyond all of our wildest dreams, the thoughts that went through my head was, this is too good to be true. This is just a one-hit wonder. None of this is going to last. I'm not going to be able to sustain any of this. And then what Steph whispered to me in those moments of my own nervous system freaking out because this was a new reality I'd never tasted before, she told me, Becky, it gets to be this good. But I wasn't used to this good. I was used to trauma. I was used to anxiety and balls dropping and women betraying me and men leaving me and money being scarce and chaos. I wasn't used to harmony. It was kind of weird and boring and unfamiliar. I wasn't used to peace and deep breaths. I wasn't used to exponential growth. And then here I am surrounded by friends, colleagues, team members, these women who were anchored in their energy and full of integrity, women who were for me and my success without feeling like it was a threat to theirs. I was not used to men staying as long as my husband was staying with me. Like, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years, dude. Like, what are you still doing here? Aren't you bored of me yet? I wasn't used to enough money. I wasn't used to receiving money without the hustle. But Steph's prophetic words really redefined the way I live my life. Yes, we have a negativity bias. I still do. Yes, I have an ego. It's self protection. Like all of that is still just as much there as it's ever been. And also, I've surrendered to the reality that those won't ever go away. The negativity bias, the ego, nor would I want them to. Like on this side of heaven, as I'm in this human flesh, thank God I have a negativity bias because that's a way to detect danger when it's actually present. Thank God I have an ego because that's my nervous system jumping online saying, hey, we want to protect you from any potential threat of hurt. But with that reality that those aren't going anywhere, I also deeply believe that as good as my life has become, it hasn't been by accident. It's been very intentional with tiny, imperceivable shifts, these little daily decisions that have been so small that someone honestly looking in on my life over the last 3 years probably would have missed them. But these are the little decisions that have added up over time to this tipping point where, in the words of my dear friend and mentor, Kelly Brock, she'd always tell me, you're going to wonder how to get there until you wonder how you got there. I'll say that again because when she first told me, I'm like, huh? You're going to wonder how to get there until you wonder how you got there. It really, lifelong transformation doesn't come in these massive, you know, cataclysmic, mind blowing moments. Like they often come from the almost insignificant, tiny, boring repetition. Think about working out, right? If you want your dream body, it's not going to be from one really insane workout where you sweat a gallon of, sweat out your pores. It's going to be from showing up at the gym just 20, 30 minutes a day on repeat over and over and over, making healthy decisions and what you're putting in your body for nutrition. And so now I hold these two truths to be true, and I really embody them both. I know I'm still so human, and just like an animal or a child, I still get so scared. I still get so caught, so confused sometimes. I get capsized by fear and it can feel like swallowed whole by it, like the Titanic in the middle of the ocean sometimes, especially recently. I think every episode I've mentioned, my mom's on hospice. I don't know if you guys are sick of hearing it yet, but it's really big in my life right now. So there's been moments where this has flipped my world upside down and I have felt so lost as I'm losing my mom. It's triggered all of my deepest abandonment wounds. So I'm still human. I still get scared and caught. And also, I know it like I know it like I know it that everything good about my life gets to be this good and it gets to stay. I do not have to live anymore like I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop or waiting for the rug to be pulled out underneath me. I do not have to brace anymore. I get to breathe. I get to be present. I get to be here. The good also gets to grow exponentially and limitlessly. And I know that the more I anchor in the good, actually take a moment to pause and feel it and taste it and name it and celebrate it, the more I savor it and feel it with all of my senses, the more it will grow. Because truth is, what you resist persists, but what you focus on grows. What you think about expands. What you dwell on duplicates. And so when I do have those negative thoughts, like we all do, like, I'm a bad mom, or my legs are ugly, or God's frustrated with me, or my husband thinks I'm boring. Like, I just recognize these thoughts and I allow them and I get curious and then I nurture them. You're wondering, how do I actually nurture them? Like, practically, what does that mean? I come back home to my body. I put my hand over heart. I speak self compassionately to myself. I pull on my grounding tools that I mentioned earlier. And this act of just self nurture coming back into my body, it's like closing the door to danger and opening the door to all that is good again. And it can be okay to start so, so, so small. In fact, I encourage that because so many of us get caught in survival. The idea of focusing on anything good or grateful can feel absolutely offensive. When you hear somebody be like, "What are you grateful for?" You just are like in that survival mode, or when shit's hitting the fan, you want to be like, shut the fuck up with your gratitude journals. If you knew my life, you wouldn't insult me with such a stupid suggestion. So if that's where you're at, I get it. I've been you, I still am you, but also maybe, just maybe, there's a margin there to play with this stupid yet life-changing idea of gratitude or setting our sight on what is good. You know, it might be as basic as, oh my God, I have ears to listen to this podcast right now. How many out there would kill to have access to their sense of hearing? Or I have a brain that can understand this message of this podcast. With my mom right now having Alzheimer's, she used to read voraciously, like books by the dozen, and now she can't retain stories, words, messages the way she used to. That's something that I realized, whoa, I take for granted. Or how about this one? I have breath in my lungs. Not everyone woke up today with breath in their lungs. What a miracle that is. I have a heart that is beating. I can look outside and see sunshine or trees or a bird flying by. Like, wow, to some, these are a miracle. So, what if I chose to see these as a miracle for me too? I hope you can even notice the shift in my energy as I kind of slow down and savor this. Like it is a different feeling. Maybe try it on and see if there's margin for you to embody a fraction more of a higher vibration or of goodness or gratitude yourself too. So, yes, our body keeps the score of what we've survived, and the negative memories can cling to us like Velcro. Even if they happened decades ago, we can feel and hear and see and smell and taste the details of those horrors as if they are happening to us right now in the present. But maybe there's room for a little bit of good, and then you can anchor that good in and watch that expand, and then anchor that in and watch that duplicate, and then anchor that in and watch it grow exponentially and limitlessly. I told you I wanted to read the last paragraph of the Kite Runner, and I'm going to do that now. And no, it won't give anything away, but it's going to tie up the episode quite beautifully. So the very last chapter of the Kite Runner, the main character says, "It was only a smile, nothing more. It didn't make everything all right. It didn't make anything all right. Only a smile, a tiny thing, a leaf in the woods, shaking in the wake of a startled bird's flight. But I'll take it with open arms, because when spring comes, it melts the snow one flake at a time, and maybe I just witnessed the first flake melting. I ran, a grown man running with a swarm of screaming children, but I didn't care. I ran with the wind blowing in my face and a smile as wide as the valley of Panjshir on my lips. I ran." It was just almost an unnoticeable little crack of a smile that he anchors in. And he said it didn't make everything better. It actually didn't make anything better. It was just the tiniest, tiniest thing, like a leaf in a giant woods shaking. And that's the vibe I want to invite you to embody this week. It's my invitation just to recognize that, yeah, the hardwiring we're designed with is wise and keeps us alive. And also, feel free to biohack your own body and work with it instead of against it. Even if it's only just a sliver or a fraction or an inch of goodness, it gets to be this good. And watch that expand. And then say it again. Now it gets to be this good. And again, expanding. Now it gets to be this good. I hope that this supported you. I love you, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in.